Mounting tension in Bahrain as the F1 Grand Prix goes ahead. Has this reignited street protests? How far will they go this time round? And is the government really committed to reforms? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Shakuntala Santhavan. It was meant as a signal to the world that Bahrain had returned to normal. The ruling al-Khalifa family described the Formula One Grand Prix as a force for good that will unite Bahrain. But amid growing protests, the race appeared to be descending into a human rights and public relations disaster. On Friday, activists began what they described as 3 days of rage against Bahrain's rulers. Demonstrations intensified on Saturday after protest leader Salah Abbas Habib was killed. It's believed he died in clashes with security forces. His body was found on a rooftop. Bahrain's Grand Prix has certainly drawn attention to the unrest that's gone on for over a year. Protests began on February the 14th last year when thousands gathered at the capital, Manama's Pole roundabout. A month later, Saudi-led GCC troops were deployed to quell the unrest. The Pole roundabout, the focus of demonstrations, was demolished. In November, an independent commission of inquiry found evidence of human rights violations, and King Hamad accepted the findings and promised Bahraini sweeping reforms. But activists say the government has failed to deliver. Bahrain's King Hamad attended the final of the controversial three-day F1 event, and he pledged his commitment to reform efforts in the kingdom. He said, "I want to make clear my personal commitment to reform and reconciliation in our great country. The door is always open for sincere dialogue amongst all our people." So has the Formula One reignited the protests in Bahrain? For more on what's going on there, we're joined by our guests. In London, Ali Al-Aswad, former Bahraini opposition MP and member of the Al-Wefaq party. Here in Doha, Mahjoob Zweiri, assistant professor in contemporary history and politics of the Middle East at Qatar University. And on the line from Manama, Fahad Al Binali, media official for Bahrain's Information Affairs Authority. Welcome to the program, gentlemen. Let me begin with you, Fahad. The ruling family of Bahrain maintains that the F1 race is a unifying force for the country. How has it brought people together instead of unifying the country? It seems the race has emphasized the divisions even more, hasn't it? The protests have intensified. At least one person has been killed.
Well, no, the Formula One has served as a unifying factor here in Bahrain. I mean, we have members of Al-Wefaq opposition, fellows of Mr. Aswad, who appeared on a BBC interview, when they said their views on the race. They said, they acknowledged the importance of the race to the economy. They said they will not stand against it. And, they said that they will not use it as a weapon. I mean, at least for this weekend, we have a lot to agree on. For this weekend, we're on the same page. Now, regarding the protests have been ongoing, since February last year. Some are peaceful. Some, they go by the guidelines of legitimate expression. Some turn to violence, but, they've been going more or less for 15 months now. I don't think the Formula One has added anything to it. In fact, it just elevated the political dialogue and discourse in Bahrain and put it into a global stage.
Well, judging by the pictures of the protests, it doesn't seem that the opposition and the government are on the same page this weekend. Ali, has the F1 race reignited protests in Bahrain? Are people there all fired up again?
Yeah, the fights, I'm not talking about the fights, I'm talking about the clashes every day. It happens in the different villages and different areas in Bahrain, regardless the Formula One is there or not. Formula One will finish tonight. And, it will be another, I would say, the new page will start from tomorrow. The media are there in Bahrain now. They are covering what's happening there. And many of them also, they are much interested to cover the protests. I mean, what is happening in Bahrain, it's exactly what happened today, exactly as like what happened last week and the week before. And people were protesting everywhere. The governments start clashes with them from last year, and it is continue. A person being killed or died 2 days ago, Until now, his body not yet delivered to his family, and the people were very, very angry there in Bahrain. If the Formula One will unify the people, I myself will be supporting this idea, but I don't think so, as the Formula One is it's a sport to the top people, or to the it's kind of luxury sports in Bahrain, and nobody is drawing the attentions. People, they were like, campaigning against the Formula One. They want to draw the attention from the media to Bahrain, and I think completely now the media it's in Bahrain, and the protesters and the oppositions also, they are benefiting from this media.
Mahjoob, what do you think? Has F1 changed anything? Has it exacerbated the tensions, or has it brought the country together as the government insists?
I think if we look at what's happening in Bahrain in a wide context, this is not the first time happening in the world where internal politics is linked with a major events like sport event. We have the Olympiad in 2008 in Beijing, where international community criticized China for abusing of human rights and other issues. So this is not the first time where international media has become interested in a sport event. What's happening in Bahrain today is unseen or untold stories about the relationship between internal politics, the dynamic of internal politics in a country like Bahrain, and the importance of a sport event like Formula One. What is the priority of the government? What does the government focus on, or the priority of the government is to have Formula One, or actually to look at the demands of people? Now we have two different narratives. The government says what's happening is something, the people, they have to demonstrate, and what's happening actually is acceptable. But the opposition says different story, and the opposition believes that Formula One is not the priority to the Bahraini people now. And especially as the previous guest was saying, it's a luxury sport, and I would say minority of people, they will be interested in such a sport. So I think it does reflect the problem and trust between the two main parts in Bahrain, which is the government and the opposition. And I think both sides, they try to invest in that sport to get as much as they can from the, I would say, from the media coverage to spread their message to the world.
Ali, has the renewed media attention because of F1 helped to rally the people more? Is it giving the opposition more steam?
I think yes, as the media now drawing the attentions to Bahrain, I would say this here: if we will have everyday Formula One in Bahrain, that might help the protest, and that might show exactly what is happening. Daily for the people. They are supporting democracy and supporting the peaceful protest in Bahrain. We as a Bahraini, we are looking for a meaningful dialogue. As an opposition, we're looking for a meaningful dialogue to stop the violence. We're looking for a meaningful dialogue to move the country from the tens, to a stable country. Like from the day the Formula One was started, a few years ago, 5-6 years ago, no one was protesting against the Formula One. Even though, the Formula One there in Bahrain, there was no protest against the Formula One clearly, or against this sport clearly. The people, what they are looking for, only the media to give more attention, the double standard of the media. What is happening in the other countries? Like the media, they are landing there, they are going there, they are going to the other countries, trying to cover the bloods, trying to cover the violence, while they are not coming to Bahrain to cover the peaceful protest, to cover the peaceful demands by the street people, in Bahrain since 14 or 15 months ago now.
Now, Fahad, the international crisis group ICG has issued a conflict risk alert for Bahrain. They say the decision to stage the F1 race and the continued detention of activist Abdul Hadi Al-Khawaja are both ticking time bombs for the country. Why is the government seemingly insistent on exacerbating tensions?
The government has no interest to exacerbate anything. In fact, it's the contrary. Now, I think earlier the point was brought up, one line of argument was mentioned earlier, that We could either focus on the Formula One or we could either focus on reform. Those two issues are not mutually exclusive. In fact, they go hand in hand. Many many people who are protesting or who started the reform, they started the protest movement, have had grievances, economic grievances regarding unemployment, regarding wages, regarding housing. I don't see how standing against the Formula One would actually benefit that. I don't see how, placing attention on the race and hosting the Formula One is detrimental. Even, Khalil Mursoud, the spokesman for Al-Wefaq political party, again, a left-wing political party, have argued for the race and its economic importance. This goes hand in hand with our march towards reform. Secondly, regarding Abdul Khawaja's case, the man is convicted of serious crimes. And any person who is calling for Bahrain to, hasten its transition towards democracy would understand the importance of the rule of law. It's the foundation of any society, especially transitioning democracy, which should move forward. Now, it's important to note that Mr. Abdul Khawaja's appeal, his legal status would come under review tomorrow, where the Court of Cassation will hand out its judgment regarding his case. It's not like an issue that we've been neglecting or refusing to address, but the courts have been on the process. They've been following up on this, and even if there is some criticism directed towards our courts or the Attorney General, it's important to know that nowhere in the ICI report has it criticized the Attorney General or the judiciary. In fact, it entrusted the courts to implement some of the report recommendations specifically. So I think, those are unjust allegations or, incomplete arguments presented, that don't stand in my view.
Okay, so Western leaders have held off from criticizing the Bahraini government's decision to go ahead with the race. Let's listen to what the British Prime Minister David Cameron had to say.
Well, it's a matter for Formula One, but let me be clear, we always stand up for human rights, and it's important that peaceful protests are allowed to go ahead. But I think we should be clear, Bahrain is not Syria. There is a process of reform underway, and this government backs that reform and wants to help promote that reform.
Mahjoob, what do you make of the West's approach to Bahrain? Why are they so hands-off, some might say complacent?
I think Western countries, they try to have. They started criticizing Bahraini government a few months ago, and with the reform process that the government announced a few months ago, especially with the Bassiouni report on the situation in Bahrain and criticizing the government of what has been done in Bahrain, that gave the international community, especially in the West, a hope that there is something going on and they need to believe in. I think that report made Britain, United States and other European countries believe that such a process should be supported by international community. And this is the reason, in that context, I understand the statement made by Cameron about Formula One. I believe that what's happening now is actually blaming the government for the delaying of implementation. Why the government is not implementing what I would say the recommendation of Bassiouni report, and I think this make the government position a little bit weak in last few weeks, especially when the issue of Formula One appeared. And I think it seems to me that other European countries will push more toward supporting the process in Bahrain, and I think that link between Syria and Bahrain, which David Cameron tried to make that very clear that there are different cases, it does indicate that they believe on the process in Bahrain and they wanted the government and opposition to take it seriously, to reach to, I would say, something in between so they can solve the problem.
As Mahjoob was saying, Cameron said that Bahrain is not Syria, that the government is promoting reform, reiterating what King Hamad said. Ali, are the rulers of Bahrain committed to reform? Is King Hamad's door always open for sincere dialogue, as he says?
I mean, let's take the independent, organizations like Amnesty. Amnesty, they issued a report a few days ago, and they said nothing being implemented in Bahrain. is still the violence, is still the authority using excessive forces, using tear gas. Daily detained the activist in the street, Zainab al-Khawaja. Now she is detained because she was protesting yesterday in Manama. Her father is about to die as he is in hunger strike now for more than 70 days. And the Bahrain authority didn't listen. Come back to Mr. Cameron when he said Bahrain is not like Syria. I do support this. We as a Bahraini opposition, we don't support arms, as we are not looking for an armies like the Syrian opposition. We are looking for a peaceful transmission, peaceful protest in Bahrain. We are looking for a meaningful dialogue. We're looking just to take our to implement the social justice in Bahrain, as it is not there. I mean, what made the Cameron speech? It is the opposition here. What makes the Cameron as a prime minister? That cannot be anybody from Bahrain to be a prime minister if he is not from al-Khalifa family. While here in the UK, the prime minister, it is elected. In Bahrain, the prime minister is appointed for the last 41 years. This is what makes the people, angry. The reconciliation, which is one of the most important recommendations in Bassiouni report, didn't started. The government didn't come. After all of what happened, after all of the violence, we still thinking seriously whether these governments want to move forward to democracy, want to change the absolute monarchy to monarchical institution in Bahrain, or they are still sticking with this, struggling with these ideas, these kind of things. If you go to Bahrain and see every day the protests, and if you see every day the people they are demanding, and if you see every day the people they are suffering from the tear gas used by the by the police force, although there are two experts, police officers from United States and United Kingdom, John Timoney and Jen Yates, nothing has been changed. Implementation of Bassiouni, it is not there. As Mr. Bassiouni, he mentioned this, in different occasions.
Fahad, what's your response? A lot of criticism that the government has failed to deliver on reforms. What concrete changes have been made?
Well, it's important to address this question from the beginning, as a few points were raised that I would like to answer. Firstly, regarding the distinction between Bahrain and Syria, Mr. Al-Aswad cited Amnesty International's report. I'd like to give something out from The Economist magazine, a fairly independent magazine, very well respected. When the report was published at the end of November, less than 5 months ago, it stated that no other paraphrasing, but no other Arab government has opened itself to, and its government, to such scrutiny, before its own people and before the world. The ICI report was, I think it symbolizes Bahrain's commitment to human rights, to take such accountability, to publicize this report and to commission it. A report which many have called damning to the government is an admirable act. I don't see, that is why I think any comparison with us or any other neighbor or any person in the region is a bit out of place. The second thing, question regarding implementation, about the lack of intention. Now, to implement those reforms, which require, institutional changes and, sweeping reforms, to implement them to the standard of best practices and world standards, and, to keep to the spirit of the independent commission's report, these things take time. That said, Professor Mahjoob Zweiri visited Bahrain here in February, where he, presented an internal report evaluating the government's progress in this. A national commission was established, national commission which Al-Wefaq refused to join, an independent commission tasked with overseeing and evaluating the report's implementation process. That commission published its findings on March 30th. Now, I don't see any other government who has been open with its mistakes so publicly and have online available freely to anyone interested what requires, what needs to be done, and what has been done. And these things, having those things available online is very significant because it gives anybody.
But Fahad, how much of the recommendations by the Bahrain Independent Commission have actually been implemented?
Well, one of the recommendations was that all judgments handed down last year during the period of national safety were to be reviewed. That has been done. The recommendation of accountability to establish a special investigation unit at the Office of the Attorney General. That, its mandate expressly stating that it should look into the responsibility of senior personnel. That has been done. Over 100 policemen, over 100 cases of mistreatment and human rights are currently at the public prosecution. And involving cases of torture and mistreatment. There have been police human rights training. We've reviewed the arrest procedures. The national, we have an internal affairs office at an independent internal affairs office in the Ministry of Interior, to oversee that standards of human rights are maintained. There is an ombudsman office at the National Security Agency that has been done. Freedom of expression laws were reviewed, and all charges relating to freedom of expression were dropped, and all dismissed employees, the majority of them were reinstated. I can't see how those measurable steps that are available online can be dismissed as superficial or, an attempt to, or, what do you call them, a declaration or a whitewash.
Okay, Mahjoob, we've heard what the opposition has had to say. We've heard what Fahad from the government has had to say. Has anything really changed on the ground, Mahjoob?
If you allow me just to go back to the idea what's been said in the West. I mean, there is a sort of belief in the region and in the West that the opposition, they are not after a radical change in Bahrain. And this is the reason why they want a real debate or real dialogue to start, because simply they believe that that debate could start and could solve the problem. And I think this is the reason why they try to promote the idea of a dialogue between both sides. Nothing changed in the ground, of course. I mean, the reports come every day about demonstrations. The government appears to say that everything is what people is doing is illegal, and they are protected by the government. But still, I think the demand of people has not been responded to, and I think there is sort of concern still within the opposition about what had happened for last 11 months. One of the main concern is actually the delay of the implementation, as we were saying, and the second is actually changing the priorities. I mean, people they expect the government to handle the issue quickly, respond to the opposition request, or at least come to the point, at least implement or apply some of the changes which calm down the situation. These, at least for all assessments so far, nothing has been changed on the ground. I think, and this is the reason why we see this kind of radical statements sometimes from both sides.
Ali, I could see you shaking your head when Fahad was speaking. How unhappy are people in Bahrain? How far will protesters go as they demand change?
I mean, since the things not been changed on the ground. I mean, since the people, from the date that they announced or they issued the recommendation of Bassiouni, 23rd of November, until now, not less than 25 people being killed and died because of the excessive tear gas. How come the people there will believe on the dialogue if this government's delayed, implementation of the recommendation of, from the BICI? The situation might be more complicated in the near future if the opposition come later and they said, let's go and to start a dialogue with the authority or the government, while the people, they are getting more angry in the streets. We are trying to protect the country from more violence, while the authority in Bahrain, the police, the riot police, I would say here, many times we have seen videos, they are like attacking people, and sometimes they are going to the business of the, groups like Jawad group in Bahrain, and they enter in the supermarket and they try to crack down things inside and stealing things from this kind of police. They are dealing with the protesters, they are dealing with the business, they are dealing with the oppositions. If nothing have been changed, if there will be no real talks, meaningful dialogue to talk about the constitutions, this is one of the important things. Constitution should be agreed by the people. You can't go to the people now and tell them you go back home while there is no real reforms. Even if the opposition go today and said, okay, guys, let's go back home and we will sit down with the governments tomorrow, they will not listen to the opposition. They want to see a real implementation, respect to the protests, allowing the people to protest in Manama, which is the capital of Bahrain, yes. Allowing the people to express their minds, ideas. People that are still detained,
Ali,
the political activists, they are still detained. Yes.
I'm very sorry to interrupt, but we have run out of time. We're going to have to leave it there. A lot more to discuss, of course. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time. In London, Ali Al-Aswad. In Doha, Mahjoob Zweiri. And on the line from Manama, Fahad Al Binali. And thank you very much for joining us on this edition of Inside Story. If you want to send us your feedback, do email us your thoughts, insidestory@aljazeera.net. Thanks for watching. Goodbye for now.